Chapter 8, Gladiatores. So the grammar of the chapter, we saw degrees of adjectives. So we mentioned there were 3 degrees of adjectives. Positive adjectives are the plain adjectives like tall or fast. The comparative adjectives we talked about, that would be like taller or faster or rather tall or rather fast. And then this chapter introduces the superlative degree of adjectives, and that's the most intense degree. So tallest or fastest, or very tall or very fast. Right. So those are the 3 degrees, and you've seen the positives in stay one, just plain adjectives, tall, fast. And then this chapter is showing you superlatives: tallest, fastest, very tall, very fast. And we saw that for regular adjectives, this comes with an ending, a distinctive ending. Usually it's double S's, im, plus a first or second declension ending. So isimus, isima, isimum. Sometimes double R's, irimus, or double L's, ilimus, but usually double S's. And there's some that are irregular, like optimum here is actually, that's way too thick. It's actually a superlative adjective and a regular superlative adjective from bonus. Good. So other than that, we're not going to see those degrees of adjective, the superlative degrees of adjectives in this translation, but we will see the other, perhaps more hefty aspect of grammar in this translation. That is the plural forms of the accusative case of the first, second, third declension. So we saw that singular accusatives in the first 3 declensions, they all ended in the vowel plus M. The plural accusatives are going to end in a vowel plus S, as you should have seen, right? So first declension, not surprisingly, the plural accusative is AS, because first declension has a thing for the letter A. Second is going to be OS. And then third is ES, which is the same as the nominative plural form. Usually context makes it pretty clear which is intended, whether it's nominative or accusative. Right, so that don't be too worried about that. In context, it should make sense what's intended, nominative or accusative. All right, so let's look at the second half here and see if we can. First of all, let's just go through and knock out the nominatives. Mark the nominatives. Mark those in green. So gladiatores, adsunt. Right, that ends in es. So grammatically, it's just a way it's spelled. It could be nominative or accusative, but how's that going to work with a verb? Adsunt, remember, sunt comes from est, right? So it's like an equal sign, so it's not going to take an accusative. Therefore, this can't be accusative. It must be a nominative. So it has to be nominative here. Gladiators are present. Okay. So the gladiatores again, we get to use the number 20. So 20 gladiatores fight today. Okay. So contextually, that's more likely than they fight 20 gladiators today, because then the question becomes who's the they would be referring to if it's not the gladiators. So just makes more sense for gladiators to be the subject here. So we'll go with that. So retiari, that has to be nominative plural, right? Second declension, nominative plural, ends just in the letter I. Murmelones, again, that's a third nominative plural, and we can't have an accusative here, a son, so it's got to be nominative plural. And then bestiarii, beast fighters, that's a second declension, nominative plural. The I gives it away. Nucarini, second declension, nominative plural. The I is our giveaway. Pompiani, again, second declension, nominative plural. The I gives it away. He Pompiani. Nucarini again. Turbulenti is an adjective going with it. We'll talk more about adjectives in a later chapter, but notice how the endings kind of agree with each other. Okay, omnes vehementur clamavant. Omnes, another third declension word. So you might think it could be nominative or accusative, but here contextually, it's got to be nominative, because nominative would be everyone energetically was shouting, right? The other option would be they were shouting everyone. That doesn't make sense, right? So just contextually, it's got to be nominative here, just because it makes sense, right? All right. If your translation doesn't make sense, it's probably wrong, right? So go with the translation that makes sense. So omnes clamabunt. Everyone was shouting energetically. Kiwes here again, third declension nominative plural. Kiwes intrawerent. So the citizens entered. That makes more sense than they entered the citizens, right? The fact that it comes so early in the clause is also a clue that's probably nominative. Right? We have an accusative here to be the direct object already. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Kiwes goes with tacoerent here, doesn't it? Still, so Kiwes, tacoerent, Kiwes became quiet. So the citizens became quiet. That has to be the meaning, right? You can't really make citizens the direct object of became quiet. They were waiting for the first fight. Okay. So now let's go through and get the accusatives. And mark accusatives with black. So bestias, right? That is a first declension accusative plural, right? The letter A plus S. Remember, they're all going to be a vowel plus S here, the first three declensions. And then ferocous here, it's an adjective with a third declension ending. So technically, you might say that could go with the beast fighters or the beasts, but the fact that it's here paired up with beasts, and to an extent, just logic too, suggests that it should be going with the beasts right there. Beasts are fierce, right? It should be. Okay, nuntios, that is second declension, accusative plural. The OS gives it away, so that's a direct object. Nucarinos, again, OS, second declension, accusative plural. Okay, regulum is singular. I've just been marking the plurals. Let me go back and get the singulars here. So ad amphitheatrum, amphitheatrum again. Amphitheatrum, both these examples, object of a preposition, right? Object of the preposition ad. Okay. So amphitheatrum again, after they enter the amphitheater there, it's a direct object. Okay, and then primum pugnam. Okay. Right, so accusatives we now know can be in the singular, which they would end in a vowel plus M, like amphitheatrum or pugnam, or they can be plural, in which case they're going to end in a vowel plus S, either AS in the first, OS in the second, or ES in the third. Right, and be careful about the ES in the third because that looks just like a nominative. So the context is going to give it away what's intended, but you have to look at it carefully to make sure you're reading it correctly. All right, so let's go back to the top and let's just mark the verbs. It's always a good idea to make sure you get the verbs identified, because when we translate Latin, we're really translating verb groups, going from verb group to verb group. So I'm just going to mark these verbs. All right, so the first verb, erat, was. The subject is regulus. Regulus was. Remember, to be verbs are like equal sign. They won't take an accusative, but it's take another nominative, right? The nominative equals nominative. So regulus equals a Roman senator. Regulus was a Roman senator. In villa magnifica habitabat. So habitabat, of course, is what tense? Imperfect, right? So BA tells me it's imperfect. So was doing something. So he was living in a magnificent house. And it makes sense for it to be imperfect, right? Because you don't live in one simple, complete action, right? It's a process over time. So it makes sense for it to be was living, being imperfect. Vila era prope nucerium. Okay, so the house was prope nucerium. Nucerium here, an accusative, right? Is that a direct object or is it the object of a preposition? Object of a preposition, prope, right? Erat can't take a direct object in the first place, and we have the preposition right here, prope. So it's accusative because it's the object of a preposition that takes the accusative, something we've talked about in class. So near Nuceria. The Nucerians and the Pompeians, era inimici. They were not amici, but the opposite, inimici, so enemies. So the Nucerians and the Pompeians were enemies. Nucerini quod ambitiatrum non habevant. So habevant is a verb, right? They were not having. Right, that sounds a little awkward, but we can just go with that for now. The Nucerians, because they were not having an amphitheater, did not have an amphitheater, we could just say, Saipe ad amphitheatrum Pompeianum veniebant. So veniebant, they were coming, or even better, they would come, right? They would come, that kind of expresses a repeated action. They would come Saipe often ad amphitheatrum Pompeianum, to the Pompeian amphitheater. Saipe erant turbulenti. So often they were turbulenti. So erant, right? They were. There is no new nominative here, so there's no nominative to pair up with it. But I know we're talking about the Nucerians, right? Because they're the last nominative we talked about, right? So often they, that is Nucerians, were rowdy, turbulenti. Regulus olum spectaculum splendidum in amphitheatrum editit. Another long sentence here. We just go right to the verb edit. He put on. Right, who did? What's nominative, right? Only one of these words is nominative, so Regulus, that's my subject. Regulus put on. Okay, put on what? The accusative singular, spectaculum splendidum. So a splendid, a wonderful show. Right, what do I have left? Olum, an adverb, once, as in once upon a time, that kind of once, and a prepositional phrase, in amphitheatro, in the amphitheater. So Regulus once edited, put on, the accusative, a splendid show, in amphitheatro, in the amphitheater. Quod because diem natalem celebrabat. Celebrabat, of course, imperfect. The BA tells you because he was celebrating diem natalem, his birthday. Diem natalem, his birthday. Multi nucerini igitur ad orbem venerant. So the verb is venerant. They came. There is a nominative here, multi nucerini. So many Nucerians came. Igitur, therefore, ad orbem, to the city. Cives Pompeiani erant errati. So the Pompeian citizens erant errati, they were angry because Nucerini vias complebant. The Nucerians complebant, they were filling vias, the streets. Right? So vias here is a accusative plural of the first declension, right? Streets. Right, the direct object of complebant, right? The word that's receiving the action is being filled. Omnes tamen ad forum contenderant. So everyone, however, contenderant, hurried ad forum, to the forum. Right, tamen, remember it's however, nevertheless. Not to be confused with tandem, right? So to the forum, ubi, where could be where, sorry, ubi could be where or when, right? So you have to look at the context to tell you which is intended. So everyone just hurried to the forum, which is the place. So it makes sense for ubi to be where, just going to sound better, right? So where nuntii stabat, messengers stabat, were standing. Nuntii spectaculum optimum nuntiabant. So the messengers nuntiabant were announcing, imperfect, right? A spectaculum optimum, the best show. Right? Not just a splendid show now, but the best show. Right? That is an irregular superlative, a bonus. Gladiatores adsunt. So gladiators adsunt are present. Waginti, which means 20, it's also indeclinable. So the ending never changes. So you can't really tell the case from it, but you can from gladiatores. So 20 gladiators today pugnat, which of course is what tense? Just present, right? No BA to make it imperfect. There's no clue that you have a perfect stem, plus you have just an NT ending, not errant. Right? So it's got to be present. Right? So 20 gladiators today pugnat, fight or are fighting. Retiarii, those are net fighters. So gladiators that fight with nets. Retiarii adjutant. So net fighters are present. Murmelones adjutant. So murmelones are heavily armed gladiators. Their helmets kind of look like fish. So that kind of explains the name. It's the name of a fish. Um, so heavily armed gladiators. We can just call them murmelos. Are present. Bestiarii. So those are the beast fighters, guys hunt in the arena. They don't hunt from very far. They're in the arena, but also fight and kill the animals, the wild animals. So bestiarii, beast fighters. Agatant. So okay, hunt here or chase. Again, in the amphitheater, in the arena, not that hard to find the wild lion walking around. So not a lot of hunting going on, but chasing more is the idea. Um, so if you say hunt with the idea of chasing down in the amphitheater, that's fine too. So hunt or chase. Bestias ferocas, fierce beasts. Nucerini postquam nuntios audiverent, ad amphitheatrum conclarme contenderent. All right. The text adds commas. You should pay attention to the commas, and they're going to follow a lot of English rules for commas. So here we have this interrupting clause here, postquam nuntios audiverent, interrupting the main clause, it is nucerini ad amphitheatrum quam clarime contenderent. Okay? And when things get more complex, sometimes it'd be helpful to really pay attention to these clauses left by commas and translate them separately. So we can just practice that here. So what is the main clause, first of all? Okay, so that's nucerini. Okay, skip the stuff between the commas. Ad amphitheatrum quam clarime contenderent. So the nucerini, that's my subject, that's nominal plural. Contenderent, that's a verb. Hurried. What do we have left? A prepositional phrase, ad amphitheatrum, to the amphitheater. And then quam celerime, which means as quickly as possible. Right? Celerime here is a superlative adverb, which we'll talk about in a later chapter. You see the double R's in there, double R's plus IM, so it's going to be similar to a superlative adjective, the superlative adverb here. And paired up with quam, it's going to mean as blank as possible, whatever the adjective or adverb means, is as that as possible. So here, as quickly as possible. So they hurried to the amphitheater as quickly as possible. All right, so what's the postquam clause here? Postquam, after nuntios adiverent. After, okay, they heard. Is there a new subject? No, nuntios is accusative, right? OS. So it's going to be the direct object here, adiverent. So after they heard the messengers. Right, so the whole thing together is the Nucarians, after they heard the messengers, hurried to the amphitheater as quickly as possible. Pompiani quoque ad amphitheatrum festinavit. So subject Pompiani, verb festinavere, the Pompeians hurried. Quoque also ad amphitheatrum, to the amphitheater. So the Pompeians also hurried to the amphitheater. He Pompiani, right? That's my nominative. Right, and recognize the I of the second declension plural nominative form. So the pronoun he from the he kai co-pronouns we'll talk about in a later chapter, they mean this or these. Look, it's the closest thing to you. So not that or those, but this or these. So these Pompeians, yeah, that's my subject, did what? Vituperabant, were cursing, were telling off. Right, that's my verb. Okay, we're telling off whom? The accusative. Nucarinos et Regulum. So they were telling off or cursing the Nucarians and Regulus. Because the Nucarians are the rowdy ones, remember. Quod Nucarini erat turbulenti, because the Nucarians were rowdy. Omnes vehementer clamabant. Right, so clamabant, of course, is imperfect. The BA tells us we're shouting. Who? Omnes, that's my nominative plural. So everyone was shouting vehementer, vehemently, energetically usually works. So they were shouting energetically, or loudly, I guess works for shouting, right? If you're shouting energetically, you're shouting loudly, no doubt. Kiwes, okay? Kiwes tamen postquam amphitheatrum introverent tacuerent. Okay, so again, we have two clauses here. We have this interrupting clause set up by commas, so let's ignore that first and go right to the main clause, which is just two words, kiwes tacuerent. The citizens tacuerent became quiet. Tacuerent, of course, is perfect, right? The errant is a dead giveaway, right? That's a peculiarly perfect tense ending. And then the stem has that U that helps us, right? So became quiet, the perfect tense. So the citizens became quiet. And then, okay, Tom and just however, postquam after amphitheatrum interwearing. So after they entered the amphitheater is the interrupting clause there. So the citizens, however, and then the clause interrupts after they entered the amphitheater. The citizens did what? Tacoherent, became quiet. Okay. Primum pugnam expectabant. They were waiting for primum pugnam, the first fight. All right. So gladiators. So some days they were probably less glad than other days that they were gladiators, but it's a living. Until next time.